Welcome to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. I'm Zach Kaufman here with Ryan D'Amico the day after the Super Bowl.
The day after the Super Bowl and the day after the biggest win in my sports life, I guess you could say. It's hard to find words, dude. It really is hard to find words to try to explain what you feel when you look. The Phillies won that World Series in 2008, and that was exciting. Don't get me wrong, but the Eagles are my favorite sports franchise. I follow all the four major sports, college, both basketball and football. But the team that I wanted to win a championship the most, ever since I was a kid, was the Eagles. The fact that they were able to do it last night is still almost surreal and hard to believe, and it's still sinking in, and just how great of a game it was too. I mean, obviously we're going to dive into all that, but we were talking before, kind of we went on here, and just I think that's what stood out most is just, I mean, what an epic Super Bowl. I mean, no shortness of drama at all.
Yeah, definitely. I know, even as someone who wasn't a fan of either team, great game to watch. It came down to the end. It was still close throughout. There are some incredible plays throughout the game, some trick plays added in there, some unsung heroes making big plays. So it kind of had everything I'd look for in a good Super Bowl, even though my team's not in it.
Most total yards in a Super Bowl ever.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible. And they achieved that feat before the fourth quarter even started. So,
yeah.
That was just, I mean, that was crazy. I mean, real quick. So, total net yards, New England put up 613, and the Eagles put up 538. That's just nuts.
Yeah. That is absurd. That's something you never see that. You never see those crazy yardage, and for it to happen in the Super Bowl was amazing to watch.
I think both of our predictions were fairly close as far as like where we thought the game would. I mean, we both thought the game would be close, but as far as our scores, I think we both had this somewhere in like the low 20s, if I remember correctly. I
know you got on me about saying the Eagles would score in the teens. I had them at 17, which was
way off.
Wrong. I would fully admit that. You were right on that call. You did make me question it there with some of your stats you were putting out, and especially with having watched the Patriots defense this year. But I stuck with that 17 total and was wrong.
And it's just it just goes to show you that, and I fall into the trap of getting, and I've kind of been this way since I was a kid, is getting like annoyed with the national media when they disrespect your team. Yeah. And they disrespected the Eagles since Wentz got hurt all the way up until that game last night. I mean, you got guys from Nick Wright to Colin Cowherd to Maurice Jones-Drew to James Jones. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on of people. Max Kellerman's another one. I mean, people that just did not give this team a chance. And I personally, and not, all bias aside, Zach, and I heard someone on the radio talking today, and he kind of put it like perfectly, if you step back and think about it, is this shouldn't be that big of a surprise to people. And it will be because it's Nick Foles at quarterback, which is the most important position. But the Eagles were the best team all year. Okay, when Wentz was in there, they were the Super Bowl favorite. He goes down. Foles steps in, but the team around him it was still phenomenal. I mean, the team that they have outside the quarterback position is incredibly talented. And I think they showed that last night with how they played on offense, getting stops on defense when they needed it, whether it was in the red zone or the big play at the end that we'll talk about. So, I mean, surprised, yes, but not as surprised, I think, as a lot of other people are. What's your opinion on that? Are you like dumbfounded that the Eagles won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles as quarterback?
Not at all. I don't want to say surprised, but they were definitely underdogs. The Patriots have been there. They've won before. They've proven themselves, which is why a lot of people really expected them to be able to win this one as well.
Yeah.
And the Eagles, we both talked about it. They are a very, very good team. And I did not, even though I picked the Patriots, I didn't think it was going to be a blowout. I didn't think it was going to be an easy win. I thought the Eagles would be in it. And like we talked about last week, as long as Nick Foles didn't become a disaster, I thought they were going to be all right. And he ended up playing very, very well. And that ended up leading him to the win there. But I think they were set up well by having that great team around him and having a legit backup quarterback who's had starting experience, which is something we've witnessed other teams. They lose that position. They don't have a competent backup, and it's just a disaster from that point. And that's what people expected from the Eagles once Foles became their starter. And once he proved it in some of those games and looked terrible, but he was able to bounce back really well and have a great run through the playoffs.
And I think that's where you need to really tip your hat to Doug Peterson, who, by the way, only got one vote for Coach of the Year, which that is a joke. I don't know who votes on the Coach of the Year, but that's a joke. For him to only get one vote that's comical. But I digress. The job that he did with Nick Foles, because, I mean, we talked about it. Everyone talked about it. How bad he looked Christmas night against the Raiders. And to the game that he played last night against the Patriots in the Super Bowl on the biggest of stages, I mean, I don't remember ever seeing a leap that big in such a short amount of time in sports. I mean, he looked like dog shit against the Raiders. Like he struggled to complete a pass. I don't mean like a 20-yard pass. He just struggled to complete a single pass. So Peterson just went back to the drawing board and was like, all right, I need to figure out what this kid does well, and we need to run with it. And they got into that run, the RPO that everyone likes to talk about, the run pass option, and that's the success that he had in 2013 in the Chip Kelly years, the year that he put up the 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And he said, okay, this is what this kid does well. This is what he likes to do. He's a quick thinker. You know, one read, the ball's out of his hands, and they ran with it, and it worked tremendously. I mean, in the NFC Championship game, they hung up 38 points. In the Super Bowl, they hung up 41 with Nick Foles. And I think the big tip of the hat has to go to Doug Peterson.
I fully agree. I was impressed with Peterson and his aggressiveness throughout the game. He had a lot of tough calls that he made the aggressive choice every single time, and it continued to work out for him. I loved seeing that from any kind of coach, just to have that kind of confidence every single time on the biggest stage. It's easy to second guess yourself, to be conservative, to play, to not lose. And we've seen it. That's what the Falcons did last year. We've seen it in every single sport where even good coaches, they get up, they get conservative. And Peterson did not do that. He stuck with what worked throughout the season, what got them through the playoffs, and what's worked the entire time he's been there. I loved seeing that from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, and he did and continued to do what got him there. And I think we talked about that last week, Zach. We touched on that, saying, you know, there's going to be a situation where it's going to be 4th and short, and I would have been surprised if he didn't go for it. And it happened in this game, and he went for it, and they converted. And he just continued to be aggressive. And anytime there was an opportunity for him to be aggressive, he went that direction, and it worked for him all year, and it continued to work for him last night when it meant the most. Now, real quick, before we dive into the game, let's just kind of touch briefly on the Patriots here. A lot of interesting things with the Patriots now going forward. I mean, there's been talks whether Brady's going to come back, Belichick. I mean, are they finally going to get broken up? You know, Gronk last night talking about possible retirement. You know, both coordinators are probably going to leave. Patricia's definitely leaving. They announced that today. You know, so where do things stand for you with the Patriots? Do you still expect them to continue to be that dominant force in the AFC and continue to be there every year? Or do you think maybe this is starting to unwind a little bit? Maybe this was the pinnacle. Now they slowly start to fade away, or is this just going to be the same old Patriots going forward?
I think they're very year to year right now, especially with Brady coming towards the end of his career. We know it's going to happen at some point that he's going to end up retiring. We just don't know when, and that's going to create kind of a downfall throughout the rest of the system. But I would be amazed if anything changed between those three with Brady, Belichick, and Gronk. It's something where it's immediately after a game when they're interviewing Gronk. You tend to be emotional. He's just trying to – I know how I was after any kind of loss. Like, I'm just trying to get through – even just like a parent coming up and trying to have a conversation with me after I lose. Like, I don't want to stand there and listen to you talk about things or like tell me about this thing that happened or like one time I did something good. Like, I just want to be miserable about the loss, go to sleep, wake up the next day, and then go about my business there. Like, I'm not trying to have that. And I'm sure this is the Super Bowl. I'm sure he's even more so in that direction. So he's just throwing out answers. I'm not really taking much of anything they said to heart yet. Like, give it a couple weeks. We'll see what actually happens. But until I see something actually change, I'm not concerned about it with those three. I think they definitely need some kind of a youth infusion. A lot of their core is definitely getting up there in age. They proved last night they need a lot of help on the defensive end as well. So they've got to get some help for those guys. But I think that cornerstone foundation will still be around at least for another year.
Yeah, I agree with you on both points you make, and I thought it was a really good point that you made. The way you put it is they're very year to year, and I think that's extremely accurate. And I agree that I think Belichick, Brady, and Gronk will all three be back next year, and I would be very surprised. Like, I would be really shocked if any one of them doesn't come back. And Gronk actually had one of his better years this year as far as health goes. I mean, he was extremely healthy, and they were talking pregame about how he changed up his lifestyle. He wasn't drinking during the week anymore. Went on a Brady type diet, and it translated. He stayed very healthy this year. So I think, like you said, just emotional, and you kind of say weird shit when you're emotional. Yeah. Anyone knows that. So I definitely think they'll all be back, and it's definitely year to year. And as long as you got Brady and Belichick, you have a shot. And the AFC was down this year. And is that going to continue? I mean, is that going to continue? Is it going to be another down year where it's just going to be, Patriots? Is it going to be Patriots, Steelers, and then maybe one or two other teams that are at the top next year where you don't have to fight 6-7 teams to, get to the Super Bowl? We'll see, obviously. But I agree. I don't think much changes with the Patriots. What Brady did last night, I mean, that just goes to show you, how special of a player he is. And obviously he's not the reason they lost the game, but he says afterwards, of course, he wishes there were some plays he could have back. But that's just being an athlete. And, obviously you leave plays out there, but that's just the way it goes. So, yeah, let's just jump right into our recap. You ready?
I'm all ready. Let's do it.
Let's go. Okay, so Super Bowl 52. Coin toss. It's won by New England. They defer.
Can we just say that was a highly questionable toss there by the guy they brought up? Didn't get much airtime under it at all. Almost a coin drop there to start.
Right. Hardly any rotation. I thought the same thing. Was thinking it to myself. It's funny you bring that up. I was thinking the same thing. Very, very interesting to say the least. So Pats win it. They defer as they always like to do, and Eagles start with the ball to start, and they have a great opening possession. Mm-hmm. I mean, 14 plays, 67 yards. They get it down to the 2-yard line, and that's where the first mistake of the game happens, where Zach Ertz gets called for a false start. Backs it up to the 7-yard line. They can't convert on third down, and they're forced to kick a field goal. And, obviously I'm thinking, you need to score touchdowns against this team. You can't be kicking field goals. That's a huge loss in my opinion. I mean, field goals, look, points are great, but against Brady and Belichick, you need to score touchdowns. So I felt like they definitely left points down the field there. But then I think to myself, they also took 7 minutes off the clock, which is beautiful. Take 7 minutes off the clock, try to control the time of possession. So I felt slighted because they didn't get 7 points, but I also was, I guess, satisfied because they took 7 minutes off the clock.
Yeah, and that was the start of a rough beginning of the game for Zach Ertz. He had a couple false start penalties early on. He had a drop at one point. He just didn't look. I don't know. It was like he was just not into the game early on.
Maybe he was nervous or something. Maybe he had some nerves.
And he's been one of their better players, which is surprising to see a couple calls go against him early, starting with that false start. And fortunately, he was able to redeem himself later in the game, but definitely came off to an odd, unlike him start there. It seemed to me.
No, it definitely did. And, he's definitely one of those guys that they definitely relied on down the stretch and into the playoffs. And for him to kind of start off shaky, it definitely was kind of worrisome. But he makes up for it later in the game. We'll get to that in a minute. Then the Pats, they get their chance, Zach, for their opening drive. And like the Eagles, they in turn go 67 yards. They do it in 9 plays and only take 3.5 minutes, unlike the Eagles 7 minutes. And they get very similar to the Eagles. They get down inside the red zone, inside the 10. And on third down, Brady tries to connect with Gronk, who kind of has a step on Jalen Mills. And the ball's probably thrown a little behind him. So Mills is able to get his hand in there and make a pass breakup. I think if Brady had that play back again, he puts that out in front of Gronk a little better. But nonetheless, Jalen Mills knocks the ball down, and the Pats they settle for a field goal on their opening drive.
And we had some quality cornerback play throughout this game. There were some points Darby got used by Gronk and just didn't have a chance. But other than that, on both sides of the ball, I was very impressed with some of the plays. Starting with Mills there, he had some great coverage on that specific one. And then there were a couple other plays that he played really, really well.
Yeah, and then so they, like I said, the Pats, they kick their field goal to tie the game at 3, and then so the Eagles get the ball back. They don't really waste any time.
No.
They go 3 plays. The third play being a beautifully thrown ball by Nick Foles to Alshon Jeffrey in the back of the end zone that he kind of, they like to compare him to a basketball player going up for a rebound, and it's a great comparison. Yeah. It really never gets old. I mean, because that's exactly what he did there. He went up and over Eric Rowe and went up and got it and was able to come down inbounds and get the first big play of Super Bowl 52 and, put the Eagles, in front and really kind of get things going and get some excitement on that Eagles sideline. Great catch by Jeffrey.
And it was well set up by the previous play with LeGarrette Blount with a 36-yard run there.
Yep.
Did not have the speed to break away, even though he had some space there towards the sideline. But a great play, and he had not started off well. He just kept getting stuffed until this play where he really took off and set him up for that Alshon Jeffrey touchdown, which was a fantastic play by Jeffrey.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Blount run. And it's funny because it was a great run, but I got a little frustrated with Blount because, I was expecting him to give him one of those just mean mug stiff arms and just throw him off and maybe even shed him and score or at least get a few more yards. But still a great run nonetheless to set him up to get that touchdown. But as the Eagles like to do, they like to make things interesting and never just stay the course. Jake Elliott misses his extra point wide right. So instead of it being 10-3, it's 9-3. And as anyone that follows football knows, missed extra points fuck shit up, basically, just to
Yep.
put things as bluntly as possible. They really fuck shit up. And, you start, thinking about 2-point conversions. You think about, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do there? When do we go for two? Do we chase points? What do we do? It really puts you in a quandary. So that extra point, pissed me off. And I think it pissed a lot of people off. And, could have been a really big, point in the game, literally a big point that wasn't there in the game. So, so after that, obviously Pats get their turn, and in turn go right down the field again. Eagles get a stop on a very nice play by Rodney McLeod when Cooks is running in motion, running the jet sweep. Brady hands it to him. He gets around the edge, around Chris Long, I believe it is, and then tries to get upfield. McLeod shoots the gap, comes up. Cooks, for whatever reason, tries to hurdle him, and McLeod makes a really nice kind of body slam tackle and cuts him off short. So it's 4th down, and kind of decision time for Belichick.
That was a huge play there, because the Patriots the Eagles were consistently in zone on that drive, and the Patriots were just picking it apart, including a monster pass to Danny Amendola, and then a couple other passes to Hogan there on that drive. And Cooks, I am curious what you think on this, but I legitimately feel like if he did anything besides try to hurdle the cornerback, he would have got the first down. Like, it was just he could have cut inside, he could have cut outside, he could have done some kind of juke, like legitimately anything else except try and hurdle him. But that was a great play. Who was the defender on that one?
Rodney McLeod.
Okay, yeah, the great bring down on that one to stop him short of the first down.
And yeah, it was a great play, and I do agree with you, Zach. And it's funny, before we went on air, I was eating dinner, and NFL Network is replaying the Super Bowl right now. It's actually on in the background here. So, and that play was one of the last plays I saw before I came upstairs here and hopped on with you. And it's funny because I said the same thing. I'm like, watching it live, you're just pumped up that he made the tackle, and he made the play, and you hold him to a field goal. Watching the replay, it's like, what the hell is he doing? Like, you're Brandon Cooks, you're one of the quickest receivers in the game. Put your foot in the ground, cut inside, try to get to the corner, beat him to the corner. Rodney McLeod's not the fastest safety in the league. He's a good physical safety, but he's not the fastest. I mean, and then he just decides to hurdle him. Maybe even try to lower your shoulder and run through him and just fall forward for the first down. Even that gives you a better chance of trying to hurdle him. Very odd play choice, and which was just part of a very odd Super Bowl for Brandon Cooks, which we'll talk about going forward. So sets up a decision time for Belichick, and I guess it wasn't that big of a decision. He just felt, look, we can't leave points out on the field, so let's bring in our Pro Bowl kicker, Gostkowski, who's been there forever, and let's attempt a field goal. And maybe he would have been better suited to go for it, because there's I don't think the snap was all that bad. It was a little low, but I think that the holder just bobbled it.
Shot right through his hands.
Yeah, just whether I guess you call it nerves or sweaty palms. I don't know. And honestly, and that's kind of, it's funny because when you get into these big games, and more so the Super Bowl, is you're playing with 100% new footballs. And I don't know if for anyone out there that's never actually held a official National Football League football, they have kind of this glossy coating on them that makes it like slick. It does, until they're worn in and until they're like, just basically used, they're slick. And I really believe that had a big part to do with it. I'm sure that was a new ball, a relatively new ball. And because of probably nerves, but because of that glossiness and that slick coating that are on the outside of brand new footballs, it goes right through his hands. And he actually does a pretty nice job of recovering.
Yeah.
Putting the ball down, giving Gostkowski a chance to kick it. and Gostkowski almost bends it in.
Yeah,
but it hits off the left upright, and it's a missed field goal for the Patriots. Your thoughts on that sequence?
it was definitely interesting. It was a great effort by both the holder and the kicker to even get it up there, because Gostkowski was already at the end of his run. He just had to one step and kick it there once the holder had it back up. One thought with 4th and 1, we've seen it before with punters dropping it and then taking off and running with it, or holders, same thing, trying to make a play. With 4th and 1, it's something he could have tried. Obviously, I'm not sure who that was, but I know it's not like one of their high-end athletes or anything like that. But you could – I thought that's something he could have possibly done, try to make a play to get the first down and save it. But I think they just kind of did the best they could with that situation once that happened. Then it went through his hands. He tried to reset it. Gostkowski did the best he could and almost got there. I was impressed how close it was from being in that situation.
No, absolutely. I mean, when they bobbled the snap, I mean, I was celebrating like it was good, like it done. The play was over. Like, excuse me, I was really surprised that he was able to get it down, and even more surprised that Gostkowski was even able to get the kick off, and then he almost made it. So, you credit them for at least giving him a chance to make the field goal. So they, like we said, they ultimately missed their field goal. And it stays 15-3 in favor of the Eagles. After the miss, though, Eagles are they forced to punt on that drive, or is that the interception?
Yeah, no, it was the punt. Rare experience in this game.
It was the only punt of the game. I thought it was right. Mm-hmm. It was the only punt of the game. They're held and they're forced to punt. And to punt the ball right back to Brady. So, like we said, and like Zach said, very rare. I mean, it was the only punt of the game, which you don't see that often, man. I mean, you don't see one team not punt at all, which the Patriots didn't do, and you hardly ever see the other team just punt once. So, just another quirky outlier in a very weird game.
Yeah. Made it a fun game, though, where we got to see more offense instead of more punters.
Right. You don't want to just see, the punters 6-7 times a game. That's no one wants to see that. So they punt. They do their thing, does New England. And then I'm pretty sure the first play of that drive was a screen to Rex Burkhead. Am I right on that?
No, the first play was the Brandon Cooks play.
Okay, it was the Cooks play. Sorry. It was the Cooks play where Cooks runs a nice route, kind of gets Darby turned around. He kind of runs a little outbreaking route and turns Darby around. And then Cooks kind of runs in a circle for whatever reason and doesn't keep his head on the swivel. And Malcolm Jenkins just buries him. And, he had a little shot to the head. But, Brandon Cooks is like 5'10", for God's sake. So kind of hard not to at least get a piece of the face mask or something. And he lays him out. And he's down for a decent amount of time. And not a dirty hit. I didn't think a head-hunting hit. It wasn't a flag, which I was very surprised. I was very surprised there wasn't a flag. You see a big hit in the NFL nowadays, Zach, 9 out of 10 times they throw a flag just because it's a big hit. And I tip my hat to that officiating crew for not throwing a flag on that play.
I agree.
So, huge hit on Brandon Cooks, and a huge loss for the Patriots there. He's their deep threat. He's their big play guy, and he exits with a neck and head injury.
Yeah, and it wasn't long till he was rolled out for the game there. But like you said, respect to the refs, especially early on. There were a couple of calls that they were kind of on the verge of potentially being a call, but they let them play. And that's what should happen in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, even in the regular season. Let them play unless there's something intentional, unless there's something clear. If it's a little bit on both sides, that's fine. And that's what we saw early on, and that's what I like to see. I feel like that helps build the NFL brand too. When you can have that, and you're not reliant on all these calls to set up field positioning, things like that.
And I thought this game, I was telling some of the guy, my guy friends at work that we were, bullshitting about the game. I thought this game was how all regular season games should be called. I thought all these playoff games, for the most part this year, the NFL needs to look at these games and tell the officials that this is the way regular season games need to be called. And I think if they do that, that's a big step forward for the NFL to try to get their image back. Do you agree with that?
100%. No question about it. I think that's definitely what they need. They need the refs to be less of an impact on the game.
Absolutely. Call the penalties that absolutely need to be called. That, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And other than that, let them play. So I know the Patriots eventually get a field goal on that drive, but correct me if I'm wrong, is this the drive?
No, they ended up not on this specific drive. They went for it on fourth down at the Eagles 35. They had an incomplete pass intended for Gronk.
Right.
Turned it over there to the Eagles.
So, in turn, because of the missed field goal from Gostkowski, I guess Belichick didn't want to send them back out there. And, they go for it on 4th and 5, and they take a shot deep to Gronkowski along the right sideline. And it's broken up, and the Eagles get a nice stand there to get the ball back and try to extend their lead. At that point, it's still 15 to 3. So,
and one important play on that drive I forgot to bring up before we got to the 4th down was the 3rd down play,
right?
Where they tried that double reverse pass to Tom Brady. And Amendola just barely didn't put it perfectly.
Who do you put that on?
I put it on Brady. He brought his arms in too quick.
Absolutely.
He had his arms extended, and the ball got there, and he brought him in, and the ball went off his fingertips. Like, that's
I think that was a perfect example, and he doesn't do it often, but I think that's a perfect example of Tom Brady showing his age. I think that was a perfect example because we all know Tom Brady's not fleet of foot. And we all know Tom Brady doesn't have wheels. And he especially doesn't have wheels at 40 years old. And, as you get older, your reaction time kind of slows down. You don't get the extension that you got when you were 28 years old, And I truly believe that played a factor in him not catching that ball because Amendola lays it out. He didn't throw it on a rope. He laid it out there and gave him a chance to run underneath it and catch it. And he just missed it. And that's a big play in that game. I mean, he's not going to score, clearly.
No.
But it's still a big play to get him that would have got him down inside the red zone. And it's incomplete and led to the 4th down that we just talked about. So
I'm actually going to disagree with you. I don't think it had to do with age. I think part of it is that Tom Brady is slow, that he couldn't get an extra speed to get underneath it. But mostly, like, young receivers getting used to the receiver position, that's still a tough catch for them. That kind of over the shoulder, just at the edge of their reach. Like, it's something he's not used to. He's obviously not practicing that all the time. Even though they did practice it for that, it was not close to a Trey Burton type throw like we saw from the Eagles later on. There's almost no possible way to drop that. But it was still, I think it was more based on he's just not used to that and just wasn't, I don't know if it was awareness or just body position, what it was, that all he had to do was extend a little bit more and he brought that in. But just not used to being in that situation to be catching passes.
Right. No, and that's definitely a good point. I mean, you would know better than me as far as playing the wide receiver position and trying to adjust your body and making that tough over the shoulder catch. They're tough catches for sure. So, Eagles again, dodge one and the score stays 15-3, and then so obviously the Eagles get the ball back. So it's 9-3. They score on this drive, 6 plays, 65 yards in only 3 minutes, which was a nice kind of balance of rush and pass. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite plays in the Super Bowl, we were talking about was the Alshon Jeffrey over-the-shoulder catch on this drive along the right end of the sideline, which was a beautiful throw and a beautiful catch and a very difficult catch to make.
Yeah, I agree. And dropped it in between 3 defenders that were around there and didn't give any of them a chance to make a play on the ball. That was an incredible throw and a great over-the-shoulder catch there by Jeffrey.
And then the very next play after that, LeGarrette Blount rumbles for 21 yards and punches it in. And the Birds go up 15-3, and it's like, whoa, okay.
And that's one we talked about before in our Super Bowl preview about LeGarrette Blount versus his former team. We were both confident he'd score a touchdown, and right here is where it happened from 21 yards out.
Yeah, I think we probably thought it would have been a little closer than 21 yards out, but I mean, great blocking on this play too by Jason Kelsey and Brett Selleck on this play. Absolutely great blocking. LeGarrette Blount was hardly touched at all until he got down inside the 5 and eventually scores. So they go up 15-3, and this is where that missed extra point earlier in the game kind of comes back and plays with your mind a little bit. Peterson's got a decision. Do we go up 16-3, or do we try to chase the 2 points and go up 17-3 and make it a 2-touchdown game? He elects to go for 2 points. I thought the formation was great. He sends 3 receivers wide, and he also splits the running back out to the right side of the field. So then he has Alshon Jeffrey one-on-one at the bottom of the screen, and they run a fade route, which I'm just not a fan of that route. It just doesn't work more times than it does. And I thought he had true one-on-one coverage. They didn't have anyone else on that left side of the field. I thought if Alshon Jeffrey, a big body guy, if he just runs a slant route, I think give a higher success rate than running the play that they actually did run, which was that fade route, which there was some contact, but not enough to warrant pass interference. And ultimately the pass falls incomplete.
Yeah. And this was what became a trend for the Eagles of any opportunity. It seemed like when they had Alshon Jeffrey one-on-one, didn't matter who the corner was, they continued to throw at him throughout the game. And they loved going for that matchup. Anytime they saw him, even with Stephon Gilmore, the best corner on the field for the Patriots, they were fine throwing at him with Jeffrey there. And he had proved it earlier with that touchdown grab, but wasn't able to come up with the 2-point conversion here.
Right. So the scores would stay 15-3 there because the Eagles don't get the 2-point conversion. Now, this is the drive. I'm 100% positive. This is the drive that has the Rex Burkhead screen.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
46 yards.
Right. 46-yard screen. I'm pretty sure it's the first play of the drive.
Yep.
And I said it so long. I said it right before this drive. There's few things in sports that pisses me off more than when a football team goes down the field, scores a touchdown, and the defense comes right back and allows points in the next drive. That pisses me off to no end, because that's how games can stay close. Yeah. I mean, it's simple, but I know it's simple, but that's how it happens. I mean, you need to get a stop there, get your offense back on the field, who was dominating, who was having success moving the ball at will against the Patriots defense. But instead, first play of the drive, like you said, Rex Burkhead, scampers for a very well-designed screenplay and a nice, track down tackle by Rodney McLeod to prevent a touchdown. And at that point, the Patriots had really had success as well moving the football. I mean, getting chunk plays, and they were really just starting to rack up the total yards. But you're thinking to yourself, all right, if we can just continue to hold in the field goals, we're sitting in a good spot. And they do that. They actually stop the Patriots on that drive, and
they gained 2 yards after that 46-yard play.
Right, exactly. They gain only 2 more yards. They're forced to kick a field goal with Steven Gostkowski. He bangs a 45-yarder through, and it's 15-6 at that point. And then the next Eagles drive, you're gonna have to help me out here. I'm trying to remember what happened.
So before we get to that, this is the point in the game where I wrote down something. I'm not sure if you noticed it or thought about it at all, but they kept showing comparative stats of two players where they'd have like one player up with his stats, and they had these graphics of the players that were terrible.
We talked about it all night.
I was like, is this that video game with Terrell Owens on the cover, NFL 2K4? Yeah, something like that. There was like,
I thought it looked more like NFL Blitz from the PlayStation days.
It's like, what is this? Is this from 1994?
That was so bad. We were all talking about it. We were like I get it if you want to use like Madden characters. I get that. Like that relates to like the whole like millennial generation of video games and that kind of thing. Like I get that. That's kind of cool. But they were awful. Like their hands were 3 times too big for their bodies, and like the faces. Like Tom Brady did not look like Tom Brady at all. And like, yeah, that's so funny you bring that up because we were talking about it and joking about it where I was watching the game at, and
it looked like the generic player creation. Like, what haircut do I want? Comb over. And like, what do I want? Wristband on the left wrist. Like, that's what I got. That's, I guess, looks like Tom Brady.
Like, you have to, like, I don't know where they got this from, because if they were using like the real Madden characters, they look a lot more realistic than that. So I'm not sure where NBC got those graphics from, but yeah, that was you talk about swing and a miss with commercials and halftime show and stuff during the game. That was a big swing and a miss by NBC. Was those those player graphics that tried to resemble video game characters, but
I don't know what they were doing with that.
Yeah, me neither. That was brutal.
But the next drive was the Alshon Jeffrey near catch leading to an interception,
which was had he hung on to that would have been an amazing catch. One-handed, he had it for a second and then it like popped out. I don't think the defensive back got a hand on it and punched it out. I just think it just popped out because it was wedged between his arm and it like in between the bend of his arm. So it just popped out and it pops up in the air and just instincts take over at that point. And he tries to reach for it with his left hand and in turn bats it up back in towards the field of play and right into the hands of a defensive back for the Patriots who's just waiting patiently and is right there for an easy interception. And an underlining moment on that play too that I was kind of pissed off about, and comes back to hurt him, was I thought Trey Burton not being able to tackle him at the 1 yard line pissed me off. I don't know if you even thought about that or anything, but I mean, he only got out to I think about the 8 or the 10 yard line.
Yeah, he got to the 10.
Yeah, but that pissed me off. Like if you tackle him at the 1. Anything can happen there. Safety, a fumbled. I mean, just anything can happen. And so that kind of pissed me off. But that's a big play because I mean the Eagles were moving on that drive as well. And if they get points there, any sort of points there, I mean they're sitting really pretty. Instead, get the ball right back to the Patriots and Tom Brady, and they don't play around. They go right down the field, 7 plays, 90 yards, just under 3 minutes. Nothing too crazy on that drive. It's capped off by a James White who just, for whatever reason, likes to show up in Super Bowls. He has a 26-yard touchdown run, and that makes it 15-12, a 3-point game. Gostkowski's extra point would have made it a 2-point game, but he misses it and just hooks it wide left. It's not even close. Good snap, good hold. He just misses it. And, I mean, already, not even to halftime, we've seen a lot of weird things in this Super Bowl happen with bobbled snaps and funky interceptions, two missed extra points. I mean, just a lot of weird things happened up to that point in the game.
Yeah, and I want to go quickly back to the Alshon play where it got intercepted. That was one – I didn't think it was as huge of a play at that point because the Eagles had a 15-3 lead. I agree they were driving. It seemed like they were going to at least get a field goal out of it, but it was almost like a punt. The Patriots got it in poor field positioning. The Eagles still had that 12-point lead at that stage. Like they weren't in a bad situation, but then the Patriots were able to turn it into something going right down there, and they did have a 43-yard catch there by Chris Hogan to set up that James White touchdown. But huge respect to White on that touchdown, just fighting his way the whole way to the end zone, breaking through a couple different tacklers. I think it was
bad tackling, though. Bad tackling on that play, though.
I agree, but still, he's fighting through it, getting into the end zone there, making it a tight game. And like you said, just a weird start with the missed field goal, the 2 missed extra points, just kind of some things you don't normally see at all in a game. So it made it interesting there at the start.
Yeah, so they score with just over 2 minutes left on the clock, and I'm sitting there and I was saying out loud to my family, I'm like, the Eagles need to do something on this drive because that's what the Patriots like to do. The Patriots like to score before that. They'll be the last team to score before the half, get the ball back in the third quarter, and score right away again. And before you know it, it's a close game where they have pulled away. So I thought that next drive for the Eagles was absolutely imperative.
Now, one quick thing before we get there that I found interesting here, because Gostkowski had just missed that extra point. They kick it off. Kenyon Barner gets a chance to return it, and Gostkowski comes through with a hit as he starts to break free there.
He was pissed.
It was entertaining to see after such a terrible play of missing the extra point. It seemed like he was all the way fired up to just come down there and lay a good hit there from a kicker.
He took out all his frustration from the missed field goal and the missed extra point out on Kenyon Barner. That's exactly what happened there because I noticed it too. I did notice that.
Because it's very unusual. You usually see the kicker just hanging back.
Right. Or like going for a ride, like hanging onto their leg or something as he's trying to make a tackle, or getting run over. Very rarely is he laying the lumber. You're right, and that's a good point. Yeah, he did make probably one of the better hits in the game. So, and then the Eagles, look, they 7 plays, 70 yards in a minute 30. I mean, great drive to get the ball down to have a chance to get some points and ultimately have a chance to get a touchdown right before the half.
And we've got to mention on this drive the wheel route there by Corey Clement that he takes for 55 yards. That's one guy I know we talked about before, talking about the preview there, that I expected one of those little-known guys that he's been doing well for him late in the season and in the playoffs here, and pulls off a huge play. And the other guy I mentioned is the one that finishes off here, Trey Burton, that both of those guys ended up having big plays on this drive, and then Clement came back around later in the game to have an even bigger one.
Yeah, tip of the hat to you. You definitely did call that. You called both these guys, Trey Burton and Corey Clement, in our Super Bowl preview portion of our last show. Of two guys you expected to step up in this game, and boy, did Corey Clement really step up. And that was a great, I don't know if you noticed when he was going out, getting ready to go out in the flat before he turned it up field, he kind of got bumped a little bit. Great strength by him to just continue to fight through that and get upfield and blow by the linebacker, and he just runs right by him. Nice throw by Foles. He runs underneath it, and then he just becomes a really good ball carrier in the open field. Just kind of turns on the jets, gives a guy just a stiff arm at full speed.
That stiff arm was nasty.
Very nasty.
Sit down.
Says get off. Gets a handful of more yards. Gets brought down inside the 10. And you're thinking at that point, wow, all right, let's go. Let's score before the half. Let's score a touchdown before the half, and let's get up by 10 points going on in the half. And then things kind of bogged down for the Eagles inside the 10-yard line, where 3 straight plays where, not much happened, some questionable play calls. I didn't like the inside give to Clement with Aguilar behind him. I didn't care for that play call. And just I'm pretty sure there was also another. Wasn't there another shot to Jeffrey?
Yeah, they tried. That was the one with Gilmore coverage, and it was close, but they didn't call any kind of pass interference on that specific one.
That was the third down play. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the third down play, and it's funny. Live, I thought it should have been pass interference. I thought he pulled him down. They showed the replay. Clearly, I thought a good no call. I was okay with it. And then fourth down comes up, and here we go. Fourth down, 1-2 yard line. Big decision for Peterson. Do you kick the field goal, try to go up by 6 at the half, be okay with that? Or do you go for it and say, fuck it, let's go for the touchdown here? Like we said, field goals aren't going to beat this team. He says, yeah, let's go for it. And not only does he go for it, but I'd be okay with saying this now, the play call of the year. The play call of the year, which was a beautifully designed play, which starts with Foles apparently checking out of the play, which we saw Wentz do all year, and we saw Foles do, where he comes up to the line, he kind of gives a kill sign, and he appears to go over and say something to the right tackle, and then the ball snapped. The ball snapped to Clement, who starts to run to his left, and then in turn pitches it to Burton, who's running to the other side back behind him. And Foles, meanwhile, the little sneaky devil that he is, just scurries out into the flat, and nobody goes with him as expected. And Trey Burton, former college quarterback, mind you, who once accounted for 7 touchdowns in a college football game at Florida, throws a nice, easy pass to Nick Foles, who was wide open, and catches it. And the Eagles go up 29-19. Or, excuse me, they go up 22-12. Sorry. That caps off the 7-play, 70-yard drive. They score with 34 seconds left in the half. And that play, that was hard to put into words. That kind of play at that junction of the game in the Super Bowl, you talk about balls, dude. Wow.
I fully agree. That was an incredible play call. And there's no way they could have planned it to be like this, but it was just such a shove in the face of the Patriots after the Patriots had tried something similar to Tom Brady and it didn't work out. It was just like, I in my head, I just envision someone's at a basketball court just chucking up deep threes and bricking every single one, and a legit player, some NBA guy, steps in the court, still got his chains, still got his sweatpants on, steps up, one shot, bang. That's how you do it, leaves the court. That's what it felt like to me. Just like, this is how you actually do that play that you guys tried. And, I mean, they had to have practiced it going in there. There's no way they could have known that the Patriots were going to run the same similar play. But for them to do it at that point, heading into the half, when the Patriots didn't get a chance to get another score from that well, they didn't get another score from that point. It was just a very impressive play call and really shifted momentum from the Patriots being up by 3 or being down by 3 and potentially 6 to now it being a 10-point game. And this also brought along the first time all game we were able to see a made extra point.
Yep, exactly. And Elliott knocks it through, and the Eagles go up 22-12 at the half. And interesting first half. Like we said, a lot of weird things did happen, and the Eagles really did carry momentum into the half. And I was really feeling good about things. I mean, offensively, they were really moving the ball, bending but not breaking on defense, which with the Patriots, that's most of the time what you have to do. And I thought Peterson called a really nice game, and I thought that they were really sitting pretty. What was your feel at halftime?
after last year, had no question the Patriots would be in it the rest of the game. I wasn't counting them out in any way at all. But respect to the Eagles for putting themselves in a good situation. Going into the half up by 10 there, having that big score at the end of the half. That play call was just huge, like mentally for even the people watching, to see them have that confidence, have that aggressiveness, and to go up by double digits there. That was just a monster play to kind of leave in the mind as we went to the halftime show there and then entered the third quarter. But I fully expected the Patriots to make a comeback. They were getting the ball after the half. I didn't think it was too significant for them not to be able to make any kind of run.
Right. I mean, and you knew that they're great at making adjustments and figuring out what worked and what didn't work in the first half. And that's part of what I think makes Belichick and Brady so good is that's just something they've always been really good at going forward and in the past, and something that you obviously knew was going to continue in the second half, that they eventually would get things right. I mean, they only scored 12 points in the first half. I mean, you had to think they were definitely going to score more in the second half. And did they ever? They don't mess around. Like you said, they get the ball at the start of the third quarter, and in my opinion, the easiest drive in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. The Gronk drive. That's
right. Exactly.
All it was.
4 of the 5 receptions on the drive were to Rob Gronkowski. And I think that goes to show, Belichick and Brady were probably like, okay, we need to get our best player involved. Really didn't do hardly anything in the first half. And they said, look, this guy's a future Hall of Famer. It's a mismatch nightmare. We need to get him the ball. And you touched on early in the show how they went zone early, kind of went back to man on this drive, and it failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter who they had on Gronk, and that's just, you can't go man to man on Gronk. You can't do it. You need to have some sort of bracket coverage or just a straight double team,
and especially at the end zone. I was surprised to see that. They tried to have Darby. That was the first time we saw it. They tried to have Darby one-on-one on him, and that was not happening. Darby's a good player, too.
He is.
But it was not happening with Gronk, his athleticism, and his giant body there that he could use to protect himself from anything. And Gronk was the only one that caught a pass on this drive. They tried one time to pass it to someone else, and it was incomplete. They gave 2 short rushes to James White. And other than that, it was just Gronk, touchdown. And
he converted a big third down as well on that drive, a 3rd and 6, if I remember correctly, that he called on the sideline. They kept the drive alive. And then, like you said, Zach, he ultimately gets into the end zone, a 5-yard touchdown catch to Gronk from Tom Brady. And he was one-on-one with Darby. And just a brain fart there with Darby, and Darby kind of slips as he's trying to break and cut, which obviously doesn't help, but still a mismatch nightmare there. So they go down the field at ease to start the third quarter and got herself a ball game again. 3-point game. Gostkowski makes the extra point finally, and it's back to a 3-point game. So then you get the Eagles. The Eagles' next drive. Is the Eagles' next drive the drive they score on, Zach? I can't remember.
So the next drive, the biggest thing that stood out to me was Nelson Aguilar early on. It was one they scored on
because it was like a 5-minute drive, right?
Yeah. Aguilar started out with a drop, and then that brought up third down, and they went right back to him for a 17-yard gain. I was impressed with their confidence in him. I've been impressed with him throughout the year, where he was terrible. He was so bad last year. And they've come to rely on him. He's been very, very good this year. And he looked like the bad version on that drop, but then no doubt about it after that. He was fine getting him the first. He made some other plays throughout the game. So good game for that young guy there.
I could not be happier for him. Mm-hmm. I could not be happy for Nelson Aguilar because he caught so much shit last year. And look, rightfully so. He was terrible. I mean, he was benched at one point. He was inactive for a game.
Right.
Didn't even dress. And a lot of it was mental. I mean, because the kid clearly has talent, but he was just inside his head last year. And for him, he made the transition to the slot this year where he found the home. I mean, he fits in really well there. And to see him have a nice Super Bowl and a really nice stat line. I mean, especially for a guy like Nelson Aguilar, who he was the second leading receiver on the Eagles, had the most receptions in the game, had 9 receptions for 84 yards, had 11 targets, which was the most for the Eagles. So, I mean, tip of your hat to Nelson Aguilar for really having a great comeback year. And you make like you said, Zach, he drops a pass, you come right back to him, he converts a big third down play, which then leads to an even bigger third down play, which is the touchdown, the play that they score on here, which is a 22-yard pass from Nick Foles to Corey Clement, which was, I mean, I thought like kind of a ballsy throw by Foles. You need 6 yards. I mean, there was kind of a lot of bodies down there. It really needed to take a nice throw to fit the ball into Clement. Foles could have went underneath probably somewhere, but says, you know what, screw it, I'm taking a shot to the end zone. And it's a perfect throw. Clement hangs on, makes a nice catch, and it's a touchdown. And Eagles go back up by 10, but hold on a second. It's reviewed. And this is where things started to get tricky, and we saw it on this play and then later on in the game with 2 really interesting reviews. This got reviewed because there was uncertainty whether when he established quote-unquote control, Zach, did he have 2 feet down? Now, I thought he did. I thought the ruling on the field was going to stand. That's what I believed. I could have seen them overturning it because of all the bullshit we saw this year there were so many instances this year where, he didn't have control. I mean, the ball was slightly moving. He didn't have complete control. He didn't have 2 feet down, so it's incomplete. Like, we saw a lot of dumb stuff happen this year. So I was a little concerned that they were going to overturn it. You, on the other hand, had a completely different reaction. You thought it was touchdown 100% across the board.
I felt fully confident in it being a touchdown. Like you mentioned, because of some of the other calls, it wouldn't have been a huge surprise to me if they would have overturned it and called it incomplete. But I felt so confident that it wasn't a bobble at all. He caught the ball and then just shifted it into his arm like any normal receiver, anybody that catches the ball would do. Like, that was the only movement of the ball. It didn't bobble around. It didn't slip from one arm to the other. It didn't pop up in the air. There's nothing at all like that. It was just a very intentional movement to go from that catching position to tucking it away as he got his feet down there. So I felt fully confident it was a touchdown from the first time I saw it to the last time I saw it.
Yeah, and ultimately it's upheld. It is a touchdown. I think the fact that it was called a touchdown on the field played into it significantly. So call stands, boom, Eagles respond, show some guts, go right back down the field and go back up by 10. Brady gets the ball back, says, anything you can do, I can do better.
Yeah.
Says, okay, that's cute. We'll go on a 7-play, 75-yard touchdown drive in just under 4 minutes. And it culminates in a 26-yard touchdown pass to Chris Hogan, who it was a kind of an unsettling trend, Zach, for most of this game, where we saw a lot of receivers running free.
Yeah.
And like having Eagles defenders, not within 5 yards of them, sometimes 10, hell, sometimes 15. And as the game wore on, that started to really piss me off and get me a little unsettled and saying, like, why are these guys running free? Like, this is ridiculous. And the Hogan touchdown was another example of that. I mean, that was pretty much pitch and catch from Brady to Hogan.
Yeah, we saw it early with that 50-yard Amendola catch that he was just sitting wide open in that zone. So we definitely had some coverage breakdowns there for the Eagles. And before the Hogan touchdown, it was set up by a big third down conversion to Amendola again for 18 yards. And then that set up that Hogan touchdown. And that's one of the things that's impressed me with this Patriots team. It's a team missing their top receiver over the last 3, 4, 5 years with Julian Edelman. He's been out for the season for a while now. They lost Cooks early on, and they still have good depth at the receiver position. We got Hogan and Amendola had a great games each. Gronk is still there. They had Philip Dorsett made a catch late in the game, nearly came up with one towards the end as well that we'll definitely discuss. But they are very skilled at just moving to the next guy and being fine with it.
And that's just something they've done since Belichick has been there, just kind of a next man up mentality. I mean, I remember remember that year they had Troy Brown playing cornerback, for Christ's sake. Like,
yeah,
just stuff like that they do that always seems to work out. And this is just another example of that. So Brady goes right down the field, cuts the lead back to 3. And at that point, Eagles get the ball back. Their drive then extends into the fourth quarter, where the first play of the fourth quarter is a third down play that ultimately fails. Do you have that off the top of your head? Did you have that written down, Zach? What play that was? Because I don't remember what play it was. Because I know it was a third down play, and they didn't execute. I just can't remember which one it is.
So leading up to that, they had a couple big plays. They had a long play by Nelson Aguilar. They had a long play by Torrey Smith. Yeah. And it brought us to the end of the third quarter with 0 defensive stops in the third quarter. Every single drive resulted in a touchdown there during that specific quarter, which is wild. I can't think of another time I've seen that off the top of my head, that it was just score after score after score.
Right.
But this drive did result in a Jake Elliott field goal. It was from 42 yards out to finish that off after a real good start with some of those long passes. It kind of fizzled out. 3rd and 3. They had that Nelson Aguilar loss there to set up the field goal.
Thank you. That's what it was. They had that weird. It was a play you've seen some teams have success with, where you bring Aguilar or your receiver on an end around. He seems like he's going to start on the end around. He stops, goes back out as a receiver, and you quick get the ball to him, and you hope to catch the defense in an over pursue action. Patriots didn't fall for it at all. They lost 8 yards, ultimately settling, like Zach said, in a 42-yard Jake Elliott field goal, who, after the missed extra point, really settled in and was a big piece to helping the Eagles ultimately win this game, and was a big piece all season for that matter. So Elliott bangs through the 42-yarder, and Eagles go up by 6 at that point. And then that's where I started to get a little unsettled, because that was the first time in a long time that they didn't go back up by 2 possessions. And it's like, oh, great. Now it's a 1-possession game for Brady, and this is where it's fourth quarter. It's like, now things are going to get fun. Now things are going to get intense and nerve-wracking. So Pats get the ball back. What do, Zach? They go right down the field, 10 plays, 75 yards. Really not much of a hiccup. You want to highlight some of the big plays on that drive?
They've really spread it around well on this drive. That they had a couple plays from Rex Burkhead early. They got it to Hogan. They got it to Amendola. They got it to James White. All those guys making plays, and then it resulted finally in a Gronkowski touchdown there from 4 yards out. So they got it around to all the significant players there.
It's funny because this was actually the longest drive for the Patriots as far as plays go. Was 10 plays, and that was the most plays for a touchdown drive in this game for the Patriots. It was actually the longest time of possession play as well. So they go 10 plays, 75 yards in 4 minutes and 47 seconds. It culminates in a Brady pass to Gronk, who We've seen him run the play many times. It's just that fade route to Gronk that is almost impossible to stop. And Ronald Darby plays it great. I mean, he's right there on Gronk, and it's just a great throw for one, and just a great play over the shoulder catch by Gronk, who just puts out those two bear claws and brings it in.
But again, they set up Darby with that one-on-one against
Right.
Gronk. I feel for him. Like the team's setting him up like that in that position, and he looks bad getting scored on once again. But you can't do that to him.
Gronk one-on-one. You go Gronk one-on-one in the red zone or inside the 5 for that matter. It's just not a recipe for success. It's just not. You're going to lose more times than you win. You might get the best of him 1 or 2 times, but he's going to get the best of you more times than not. So that gives the Patriots their first lead in the game, Zach. Gostkowski makes the extra point. They go up 33-32, and now things get interesting. Now it's like, all right, Eagles are got to play from behind now. All right, pressure's on the Eagles. Pressure hadn't been on the Eagles all game. They played with the lead. They had it. They were responding, yes, when the Patriots would score, but now they got to respond now that they're down. And that's where they go on a championship drive. You talk about drives that win you championships, and you get contributions from everyone.
Yeah.
Offensive linemen making plays, giving Foles just enough time. Tight end stepping up, receiver stepping up, quarterback sidestepping a rusher and making a play. I mean, everyone on this drive stepped up. It was a 14-play, 75-yard drive that lasted 7 minutes and 1 second. I mean, just an outstanding drive. Your guy, Nelson Aguilar, played a really big role in this drive as well. Had some really big catches, a couple big first down catches. Zach Ertz makes a huge fourth down conversion where Peterson just, I think, comes to grips with himself that I'm not giving Brady the ball back. Even if he scores a touchdown, it'll still be a one-possession game. I don't care. I don't want to give Brady the ball back. Says, all right, guys, let's go for it. It's 4th and 1, 1.5. Right around their own 44 or something like that, 46, somewhere around
45.
There. 45.
And Ertz had already converted a 3rd and 6 on that same drive too. That they were relying on him when they needed yards, and this was another huge play for him.
And on that 4th down play, Foles makes a really nice play to just backpedal a step or two, buy himself another half a second as the pass rush is bearing down on him, and throws a great pass to Zach Ertz, and just a great I didn't hear Michaels or Collinsworth give Ertz credit for that catch. The fact that he was able to hang on to that, I mean, the defender's arm was right in there with him, trying to knock it out. I thought that was a great show of strength by Zach Ertz, just keeping his arms locked tight around that ball as he went to the ground. That ball could have easily came loose.
Yeah, this is where he really showed up for them. And something else significant during this drive, after the second play of the drive, it was an incomplete pass. The Patriots had to use their first time out. So they were down from over 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter here, and they already used that first one, which they could have used later in the game. So that's something that hurt them at this point. But, yeah, the Eagles really relying on Ertz. He really showed up there. And then as they got closer, as they got on the Patriots half of the field, that's when they started really relying on Nelson Aguilar. And back-to-back catches for him put him in position to be able to score there.
Yeah, exactly. And Nelly made some big plays and stepped up when they needed him. Got a big first down, got another first down where he was able to get free and just barely get it inside that first down marker. And I was hoping he was going to get down on that play and keep the clock running, but he steps out of bounds. Oh, okay, it is what it is. He got the first down. And then that sets up, we get to a third down which is a huge play, because if the Eagles don't convert on that third down, they have to settle for a field goal, because I think it was like 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7. You're not going for it at that point. You're kicking the field goal to take the lead and go up 35-33. And that's where they run a great play call for one. They get Zach Ertz isolated at the top of the screen, and he basically just runs a slant route and had success with it in the Minnesota game, had success with it on this situation. And Foles hangs in the pocket. The offensive line gave him enough time, but Foles hangs in the pocket. Just kind of something that I noticed too is, did you notice, Zach, the linebacker that jumped up and tried to get in the way of that pass? Did you notice that?
I didn't catch that.
Okay. So the backer jumps up to try to get away. Foles kind of puts a little air underneath it instead of just rocketing into him. Kind of put just enough air on it to get it over that backer's fingertips, and Ertz eventually does make the reception and goes in for an 11-yard touchdown. So we thought. As he goes to the ground, he's diving to break the plane. The ball squirts loose. It hits the ground, squirts loose, pops in the air. He catches it then. And, you think it's a touchdown. You think it's a touchdown. And everyone's looking around. Is it a touchdown? They converse. They signal touchdown. But like every other scoring play, it's reviewed. And then you go back to that Jesse James play against the Patriots, Steelers-Patriots, where he scores. So he thought Jesse James scores. He catches it, turns around, and leans towards the pylon to break the goal line to break the plane, and the ball shifts and comes loose, and they rule it incomplete. Same kind of concept here, except Ertz catches the ball, takes 3 steps, then dives for the end zone. He kind of, at that point, he's a runner, to where if he breaks the plane, all he's got to do is break the plane to touchdown. It doesn't matter what happens to the ball after that. I thought on this one, I was more confident on this one than the Clement play. I thought this is a touchdown 100%. If they overturn this, it's complete bullshit, and this shit's rigged. What were your thoughts when you saw it happen live? Did you have any sort of doubt, or were you just like touchdown right away?
I felt the opposite of you. I felt confident on the Corey Clement touchdown. I did not. I felt confident that if in any normal level of football this happened, it would be a touchdown. But when it comes to the NFL, that left me questioning this the entire time it was being reviewed. Because right. I'm a Cowboys fan. I've seen Des Bryant catch the ball and it not be a catch. I've seen Calvin Johnson repeatedly catch the ball and it's not a catch. I've seen Jesse James during the season catch the ball and it's not a catch. So I wouldn't have been surprised if somehow they ruled it an incomplete pass. I feel like it would have been a terrible call, or it would have been against football in general, but I wouldn't have been surprised at all if they had called this incomplete somehow. And I'm curious how you'd feel about it. But I feel like if they had called that incomplete, number one, it would have been riots in Philly, worse than what there was after the game. And number two, so many inconsistent fans that are just tuning in for the Super Bowl would be like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. This is rigged. There's no way I'm watching football again. And I think for like a PR move in general, I'm glad the NFL called it the way they did. I didn't feel comfortable about it at all.
It's funny, and you bring up an interesting point that gets me thinking is Roger Goodell spoke to the media on, it was like Wednesday, I think, the week before the game, last week. And obviously one of the biggest questions was people were asking him about the catch rule. Like, I mean, are you guys going to make adjustments to it? Can we expect to, try to get this thing figured out? And he said, yes. He said, that's one of the things at the top of our list is to figure out and simplify this catch rule. And I wonder if that played a role in it. Like, we need to simplify this. What better way than to start in the Super Bowl? Start now. So when they went to the monitor and they went to New York, who the people that look at it and help them determine it, I wonder if they just stuck with that and were like, let's simplify it. It's a catch. You called it a catch on the field. You clearly thought it was a catch live. Let's stick with it. It's a catch. So definitely an interesting just situation there with Ertz and was it a catch or wasn't it a catch? And obviously, depending on who you root for there, you probably have a different opinion. But ultimately, Ertz and the Eagles do get into the end zone, like I said, a 14-play, 75-yard drive that lasted 7 minutes.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how they managed this drive, because this is the only time I question Doug Peterson's play calling.
Okay.
The Patriots still had their 2 timeouts left on this drive.
They did.
And as they got closer, it was at one point Nelson Aguilar ran out of bounds. And then New England, with 2.5 minutes left, New England used a timeout. Right. And that's when the Eagles, they had Alshon Jeffrey one-on-one, which they loved all game trying to go for that. They did it again, and it was incomplete to stop the clock there.
Right.
Before that Ertz catch, which is something I really did not like by them, that they left that much time remaining for Tom Brady to get the ball back. What were your feelings on that?
I think it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning of the show with just Peterson's aggressiveness. Yeah. I don't think it's in Peterson's MO to just say, all right, well, let's sit on this. Let's try to waste as much clock as possible and hope we score then on third down. Mm-hmm. I think Peterson was just like, we need to score. Like, would it be nice if we could run this clock down, kick a field goal with 10 seconds left and win it that way? Sure. I mean, that's ideal. Yeah. But the chances of that happening were very slim. There just was too much time and not enough field for that to happen. So I think his thought process is, look, we just need to get this in the end zone some way and then hope that our defense can make a play. I think that was his thought process.
Yeah.
I just think he was at the point where we can't worry about wasting time and not leaving them enough time and not leaving them too much time. I just think his MO was, look, we need to figure out a way to get this in the end zone and what plays are the best way to get it in there. And like you said, they liked the Alshon Jeffrey one-on-one matchup all game, so they went to it. And they had the Ertz one-on-one matchup then on third down, and they went to it there. So I didn't have a big of problem with the I guess time management play calling maybe as you did.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a huge problem, but it just stood out a little bit that they didn't try and run off some of that extra time and especially make the Patriots use another timeout there. I was very surprised by that.
So with the touchdown to Ertz, they only go up by 5, so obviously they need to go for 2. And they try to get the ball to Corey Clement, who comes out of the flat, and I thought Foles had him right away. As soon as he cleared that backer, I thought Foles had him. And I don't know whether Foles just didn't see him, wasn't looking at him at that point, or just was hesitant and didn't think he could fit it in that window. I'm not sure, but for whatever reason, he didn't throw it right away. Waited a second, then threw it, and at that point it was incomplete. What was your kind of – did you have the same feeling as me when that happened, Zach? Did you think he should have got it to him earlier, or did you not think that?
Going into the play, I felt very confident that Clement was the one that was going to get the ball. Because the last couple of times they had gone to Jeffrey, it had not worked out there. Ertz had just scored a touchdown. And seeing Clement in the game, I know they like getting him out of the backfield, and I kind of like that idea. It was well covered. I think even if he got it a little bit earlier, he would have given him a little bit better chance, but I think it was still well covered and most likely would have been broken up regardless.
Okay.
And it was a play call that didn't really
It was lackluster. It was
at that point. Yeah.
And the play, I agree. I didn't like the play call in particular. I thought the play call was pretty lackluster. You saw some really good play calls throughout the night from Doug Peterson. I thought that one, unfortunately, was not one of his better ones. But like we said, the attempt fails. And at that point, there's 2 minutes and 21 seconds left on the clock. Eagles are up by 5. We've been here before. Tom Brady down, chance to win, 2 minutes left. Can he do it again? Can he get ring number 6? Yeah. That's what a lot of people were thinking. One person that wasn't thinking that was Brandon Graham, who on the second play of that drive, and something the Eagles have done all year, and they had a lot of success with it all year, which was when they know that the offense is in passing situations, they bump Brandon Graham down inside to play with Fletcher Cox. So now your interior line has to pick their poison. Do we double team Fletcher Cox or do we double team Brandon Graham? At this point, on this play, they double team Fletcher Cox. Brandon Graham had a one-on-one matchup with the right guard. And in his words, he was bull rushing him the whole night. So he set him up. He faked the bull rush. Offensive guard kind of jabbed at him. He shed his hands, saw the ball, stuck his arm out, and lo and behold, gets his hand on it. The ball comes free, takes a very fortunate bounce, too, right into the hands of rookie defensive end Derek Barnett, who has really stepped up this postseason, had a forced fumble in the championship game, has a big fumble recovery here. And the Eagles, who couldn't get a stop in the second half, who had given up touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive in that second half, when their defense needed to make a play and someone needed to step up, it was Brandon Graham out of the University of Michigan, scrutinized ever since he was drafted here, comes up with the play of the game. And the guy that you told me before we went on the air, he would have been your MVP pick if you had a vote.
Absolutely. This was such a huge play for them because throughout the game, the Eagles were not getting any pressure on Tom Brady. He was able to sit back there.
They're only sacks, Zach.
Pick the defense apart. And a fantastic play by Graham to really change things because at that point, it had been one team goes down and scores, the other team goes down and scores. Nobody was stopping anybody, and it was just a back and forth. And this is what one of the teams needed, and it turned out to be the Eagles, to really change that momentum and put themselves in a position to put the game away. Monster play there by Brandon Graham, and then the recovery right into the hands of Barnett. This was the number one game-changing play for sure of the game.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, this was the reason the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I mean, it really was. I mean, if this play doesn't happen, obviously, who knows what happens? Maybe they get a stop. Maybe they don't. I mean, maybe Brady just methodically moves them down the field and they kick a game-winning field goal as time expires. Who knows? But all that matters is he did make the play. Barnett did make the recovery. And all of a sudden now the Eagles are in business. They have the ball. They're up 2. They're already in field goal range. And they're thinking, all right, let's just bleed the clock. Let's try to it'd be nice to get a first down, but we're just going to run the ball 3 straight times, make them use their timeouts. And that's what they did. And, obviously credit the Patriots for getting a stop, not letting, Ajayi or Blunt, it was Blunt every carry on that drive, but not letting Blunt get loose, get through a seam and break one that would absolutely seal the game. They were able to get a stop. Jake Elliott comes in. He's, I have a problem. I don't think enough people talking about Jake Elliott. I really don't. Like, this guy was drafted by the Bengals, not undrafted. Like, it's very rare that you see a kid drafted, the kicker. They drafted him. They bring him in. They cut him because he doesn't do that good in, training camp and preseason. Caleb Sturgis, the Eagles kicker, gets hurt in week 1. He comes in, drills a record-long 61-yard field goal against the Giants, and has been absolutely phenomenal throughout the rest of the year. And he's phenomenal in this game and drills a 46-yard field goal with all the pressure in the world on him. If he misses that, the game is still right there.
Right.
That game is not over if he misses that.
Great field position for the Patriots if he
Absolutely.
misses it too.
Great field position. Yeah, short field. All they got to do is get in field goal range. They probably only need, for Gostkowski, Christ, they probably only need 30, 35 yards, if that. And he drills it. I mean, it's not even close. He drills it, puts him up by 8. The job that kid's done, it's just fantastic. And it's just a great story, and I really just tip my hat to him.
Yeah, he's come up big for them throughout the season. It's good to see a story like that he didn't make it originally. Like you said, you usually don't hear or see of kickers getting drafted at all. I immediately think of the Aguayo that the Buccaneers drafted in the second round, and he's been cut by, I think, 3 teams in the last 2 years. Yeah. So usually you don't see that from kickers, but it's always such a roll of the dice when you're picking a kicker out of free agency partway through the season. I know that the Cowboys have had to do that before, and this is one that worked out well for him.
So then, look, they're up 8. They're going to give the ball back to the Patriots. A minute 5 left. No timeouts. Yep. And a play that we talked about before we went on the air that was definitely strange was, so they kick it off short deliberately, obviously, because Elliott's had been kicking touchbacks pretty much the majority of the game. I think that was the thought process there, was to kick it short, try to race a couple seconds off the clock and get good coverage. They did that. They also had some help from the Patriots, who tried running a reverse, like a little kind of end around on the kickoff, and it failed miserably.
Yeah.
It could have been fumbled, too. I mean, he was kind of hit right as he exchanged it almost.
Mm-hmm.
Burkhead gets brought down right at the 10, basically. And so they got to go 90 yards in under a minute, 58 seconds. First, second, third down. Incomplete. So it's 4th down. Game on the line. Brady converts it to Amendola. And then they get a couple plays to Gronk here and there. Gets them up close to midfield. Try to hit, I think it's Hogan on the far left sideline. Darby almost makes a interception.
Yeah.
He jumps the route, almost picks it off. That obviously would have sealed the game, but he drops it. Now there's 8 seconds left, and time for a Hail Mary. And Brandon Graham actually almost sacked Brady to end the game. That would have been pretty fitting, as he's the one that got the strip sack on the last drive. He almost brings him down, doesn't quite get him. Brady's able to get loose, step up, fire one deep, and now it's a free-for-all, and the ball comes down, and they try to bat it down, and they don't bat it down all the way completely, as we've seen on these Hail Marys, Zach, where it's like a pinball, man. It rattles around off of helmets, shoulder pads, anything that it can find. And that's what it did.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, though, it falls to the ground, and the game is over. It reads 0s across the board, and the Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and they find a way to slay Goliath and beat Tom Brady and the New England Patriots to capture their first Super Bowl championship. And I'll tell you, we talked about it a lot during the show, or not during this show, but during our podcast since we started it. We even had a show dedicated to it and talked about some of the players on this team. But I'm so happy for this team, Zach, because of the character on it. Like, they have so many likable guys. I have never liked a sports team like I like this team. I didn't think there could be a team I liked more than the 2008 Phillies. That 2008 Phillies team was another great character team with Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Pat Burrell. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, really. I mean, great players on that team.
Mm-hmm.
But this team, to me, man, they take the cake. I mean, the players that they have, and just the genuine people they have, the family bond that they have. It's great to see, and I'm really happy for them, and couldn't be more proud of a team.
Yeah, I agree. Even as a Cowboys fan, a lot of great players to watch, great human beings on that team. It's not like the last time the Eagles went to the Super Bowl where they had T.O.
Right.
I can't think off the top of my head, but I know there are a couple other players that I just could not stand on that team. That it made it so much easier to hate. But I find myself like I appreciate the Eagles' story this year. They have good players. They have a fun team to watch. They have an incredible story of being able to win it with their backup quarterback. It's been a great run for them, and I do have a huge respect for them. It's unfortunate I have to watch all my Eagles fans' friends celebrate all over Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, everything you can imagine.
And it's only going to keep. And it's only going to keep coming.
For them.
And it's only going to keep coming. The parade is Thursday. The pictures and everything and videos, they're just going to keep pouring in, man. So if you're not an Eagles fan around here, this is kind of your worst nightmare because it's our first one, and we're going to soak it in, and we're going to take it in stride, and we're just going to go nuts. So just back to the game, just an outstanding football game too. I mean, highly entertaining. I mean, there was weird shit. There was great shit. It was just a great game. Yeah. I mean, everything you wanted in a football game, you got in this game. So, just an outstanding football game. What is your biggest takeaway from this game? Could be anything. What's your biggest takeaway from this game?
As a Cowboys fan, the Cowboys have not been in the Super Bowl since I'm pretty sure I was in first grade. So basically every Super Bowl I remember watching has not been my team. So I'm always hoping for and cheering for a close game. And this was exactly what I'd be looking for. And not like a 6-3 game. This is a high-scoring game. You have some major, exciting plays. You have two dynamic offenses. You talked about at the beginning a record-setting game when it came to offense. It's just exactly what you'd want as a fan whose team is not in it. It was a very entertaining game. Came down to the very last second. And you can't ask for anything more.
Yeah, and you're totally correct with that. Absolutely. And
you see the underdog win. Everybody loves that story.
Eagles were underdog in every playoff game this postseason. Only the third team ever to win the Super Bowl with being the underdog in every postseason game. My biggest takeaway from this game was just how – I mean, and I've said it a lot this year, and it's part of the reason why I continued to pick the Eagles down the stretch and into the playoffs and didn't really waver like I had in years past, was just this is just the culmination of, like, it's the definition of a team. I mean, they are the ultimate team. I mean, Zach, listen to these players that they lost. Carson Wentz, MVP of the league, would have been had he not got hurt. A future Hall of Famer, left tackle, Jason Peters. Their starting middle linebacker who calls the plays, Jordan Hicks. They're another Hall of Fame kick returner, do it all back, Darren Sproles. Their best special teams player, and Chris Maragos, who was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago. Who else? I feel like there was someone else that I'm missing. Darby got hurt in the beginning of the season. He dislocated his ankle. He's out for a stretch of time. I mean, the list just went on and on and on with these injuries that they had to overcome. And I don't think any other team could have done it except this team, because they are the definition of a team. And that's my biggest takeaway is they were the best team in football. And here they are, all said and done, Super Bowl champions, and every person on this team will never have to buy a drink, pay for a cab, buy dinner, pay for a stripper. They won't have to do anything in the city of Philadelphia ever again on their own dime, because they're all heroes now. And it's you laugh, but it's true. It's true. I'm telling you. And if it was me, and I ran into, I don't care who it was. If I ran into, I'm trying to think of Corey Graham, who's a not very known defensive back on the Eagles.
Yeah.
If I ran into him at Acme in Philadelphia, I'd say, Corey, let me pay for your groceries, dude. I got them. I got them. They're on me. They're on me, dude. Like, dude, they're $300. It's a $300 bill. I don't care. It's on me. That's what I would do. And I think that's the treatment they're going to continue to get. And the parade on Thursday is going to be crazy. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. And just a great ending to the football season. Comes and goes so fast, doesn't it, dude?
It certainly does, man. Quite a year for our first podcast where you get to experience your first Super Bowl win. We've had quite the adventure throughout the season here.
Give me something. What's something? Last kind of observation here, at least last thing that I have. What's an observation or something that jumped out to you kind of this football season? Is there one thing that maybe a player or a team or just anything that kind of jumped out to you this year that that stands out? I'll let you think about it. I'll give you mine first. And yes, it kind of does relate to the Eagles, but it also relates to the league in general. I think the Eagles winning last night is so good for the NFL because I think owners, GMs, fans, they look at the Eagles and they say, "Who the hell is Doug Peterson?" And they say, "Okay, maybe we don't need to get the big splash coach, when we need a new head coach. We just need to find the best coach for us and the best coach that fits the players that we have and fits the direction that we want to go in." To me, that's what stands out to me is that the Eagles give every other team hope that they can dethrone the Patriots and they can get back to parity and they can get back to competing for championships. That's my biggest takeaway from the whole NFL season is that other teams should have hope after seeing what the Eagles did this year.
I definitely like that one. And it's always interesting to see when a different team wins, you'll see some of the lesser teams try and model after that team to try and achieve the same success. And it'll be interesting to see how teams try and do that, try and build a team like the Eagles. It's just so deep, so talented all the way around that they could sustain a quarterback injury. Whereas right now in the NFL, most teams search and search and search for that quarterback and then try and build around them. The Eagles almost had the opposite approach when you take out Carson Wentz there. But my biggest takeaway throughout this season is some of the young talent in this league. We just experienced a very, very talented rookie class. There's some very much highlight players there. Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt have been huge. Marshawn Lattimore, defensive rookie of the year. We had Dalvin Cook show some promise and then get injured. We've got a lot of good young players throughout this league, and I'm excited to see them as they continue to grow and get better and better throughout the years.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at guys like Deshaun Watson. There's definitely a lot of good young talent up and coming, definitely in the NFL. And another thing too is the amount of injuries that happened this year. You can't expect that to happen next year. So, I mean, you're going to have a lot more firepower and star power in the NFL next year, obviously barring something crazy happening. So I think that also in turn gives fans something to look forward to even more next year when we get all these players back, when you get Aaron Rodgers back, when you get Deshaun Watson back, when you get J.J. Watt back, when you get
David Johnson,
Carson Wentz, David Johnson. I mean, some of these, guys that were injured are just bona fide superstars. So it's going to be, it should be a fun off season. We'll have free agency starting in a month. We'll have the draft, another month after that. So it's going to be a fun offseason. We'll be here every step of the way to take you guys through it and break everything down. I expect us to do something fun for the draft. I think we can set something up with that will be pretty cool. So I'm looking forward. Look, it's the off season, but the off season to me is just as enjoyable as the season. I love free agency. I love the draft. I find that stuff interesting. The combine. I love the off season. So we'll be here every step of the way for you guys. It's been a fun NFL season. I've enjoyed it. It's been fun to share the ride with everyone, with experiencing my first Super Bowl, like Zach said. So it's just been a very, very great NFL season. Zach, you got anything else to end on? Take it home.
That was pretty good coverage there from your team. Your team winning the Super Bowl. It's been a successful year. It's been a successful, fun start to our podcast here as we completed our first ever NFL season and college season this year.
Yeah, and it was really enjoyable. I really like kind of what we're doing here, and only going to get bigger and better. I truly believe that as we just continue to build our name and just build up and hopefully get it out to more and more people. So thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week with another installment of our show. And fly, Eagles, fly. That's the last thing I'll say, Zach.
Close it out on that. Everyone enjoy your week.